Early in 1925,
We could go anywhere.
headlines across the United States briefly focused on an intensely local and specific story. A man in central Kentucky was stuck in a cave. His name was Floyd Collins. He was 37 years old.
Oh my God, this is another one I wanted to talk about. Fear of like claustrophobia and like spelunking. Because there was this one story I heard about a spelunker like suffocating to death because he was stuck. Because I don't know if you guys know what spelunking is, but it's where like you cave crawl. You crawl in a cave, but the cave is this big, right? The cave is this big, and you literally are just like doing this to get through it. You know what? We're gonna watch that. We're gonna watch that after this.
And he had spent countless hours exploring the dark tunnels, chambers, and cascades under Barron County. It wasn't the first time he had lost his light underground. It wasn't the first time he had faced a squeeze. And he assumed when he was found a day after the cave-in that trapped his legs, it would be a fairly simple process to extract him from the cave he had so easily wriggled into. It was not. Collins had underestimated his own caving ability. What felt to him like an easy scramble, only 60 feet underground, was a near impossibility to most people, both physically and mentally. Sand Cave, where he was trapped, was unstable, narrow, and, like all caves, smotheringly dark. Men would go in to give Collins a drink of water or a sandwich and come out trembling, having barely made it halfway to his position.
Dear God.
That's a big no. Hours later, Collins was still in the cave. A few people had made it to him. His brother, a reporter, a firefighter. They planned to tie a rope around Collins and pull him out, even though the walls of the cave could shred his body like knives, even though, as a doctor warned, the rope might stretch his organs like taffy. Collins begged them to pull him out, even if they had to pull his foot off, but they couldn't. While the folks in the cave struggled to think of anything that could rescue Collins, the rest of the country was wrapped, with newspapers running headlines.
See, I see a lot of people, why do this? Why go in there? Why would you do that? Who fucking knows, man? Why do people, like, climb really, really tall things and hang off of them with one hand? Nice. Judas, what the fuck? Perfect. What is with these donations lately? $50? What the hell? You just bought me my next meal. We're eating good tonight. Thank you so much. Holy shit. Why does anybody do anything? Exactly, chat. Why am I a YouTuber? Why do I do this?
Coast to coast. People hung on every word. The horror of the situation, the drama of the rescue attempts. It was electric. No one could tear themselves away. 6 days after the first cave-in, officials decided that their best chance of rescue was to dig an entirely separate tunnel in from the surface. It indeed might have been their best chance of rescue, but it wasn't enough. 14 days, 2 full weeks after he trapped himself in a cave that others could barely enter, Floyd Collins had died.
2 weeks of that.
And what was the rest of the country left with? A gaping fascination at what lies beneath us, a fixation with the blackness. Congress regulated the area around Collins Cave in part to try and regulate the stream of wannabe explorers plunging into their own underground worlds. You might have heard what resulted. Mammoth Cave National Park. Today, it's the longest known cave network in the world. 2 million people visit that park a year. Because despite its origins, despite the involuntary shudder that descriptions of it cause, despite the fact that it is easier in every single respect to simply stay above ground.
True, it is.
We just can't resist it. It is, in one of the most literal ways possible, a call of the void.
Did they get him out? No, he died. What do you mean?
For many years, we thought the bottom of the world lay in the Krubera Cave, 6,824 feet below the Caucasus Mountains. What does being in a cave feel like?
Caca?
Let's start with the basics. It's dark. It's really dark. Water and air may trickle past the first room of a cavern, but light is bound to just a couple feet of the entrance. Once you've taken a turn deeper, you're surrounded by true black, no stars. You can stand in the dark with your light off for as long as you want, and your eyes will never adjust. It seems like, after crawling through a passage, that it should hold a little residual light. It feels like it should remember you were there, that if you look back, the rock you just prostrated yourself on should look a little less alien than the ones you haven't yet touched. But it doesn't. As soon as you turn your lamp away, that area fades back into the void, and once it returns to the void, nothing is familiar. I said multiple times out loud, "There's no way that's the way we came from." I was wrong. And thankfully, I was with people in the cave who were much smarter than me, but I couldn't shake the what-ifs from my head. What if I had stumbled in here alone? What if my light went out? What if all I had was my sense of touch and the sound of caverns, trying to understand the walls of rooms that barely made sense when illuminated? Caves are dark, but they aren't silent. They sound...
Oh, yeah. Did you guys ever... Oh, wait. I think I showed you guys that video of this dude walking into a cave and then just, like, hearing whispers and shit. Apparently, I think it had to do with, like, the wind and stuff like that, but it made, like, a whispering sound, and the dude was like... It's like, yep, no, I ain't doing that.
Well, they sound wet. Because they are. Thousands of tiny currents of water, individual drops and streams and rivers cutting their way through the rock on a timescale.
Caves are dark,
will
Smile.
live
True.
to see. The sounds of water echo through a cave, precisely enough that I felt like I could hear a single drop falling off a stalactite a dozen yards away. Simultaneously, though, caves swallow sound, muting voices and movements just a few feet from me. And the combination of these two contradictory effects is absolutely uncanny. It seems like everything about a cave.
I mean, there's a shit ton of spelunkers with cameras, and none have ever caught some weird underground monsters. Well, yeah, I'm not saying there's weird underground monsters. I was saying there's creepy noises down there.
The light is gone. The sounds don't make sense. And the space itself is... I mean, this is the real map that my guide handed me before I came in. Look at this. Oh, this clears everything up. And what's more, I feel like I could memorize this hallowed nightmare fuel and it wouldn't even begin to scratch the complexity of the actual cavern. Because there's no way this paper can capture the three-dimensionality of these passages. There were times when we'd be walking one direction, drop down 5 feet, and then turn around and start crawling back in exactly the same direction, but somehow under the exact rocks.
This is what I'm talking about. Why? Why? Like, who is the guy who's like, you know what? Let's see if we squeeze through this really small hole. What if there's a giant like drop there? Well, what if like, you don't know. Who thinks of these ideas to just like, oh yeah, let's squeeze our body through this really small hole that we'll probably get stuck in?
Been walking on before. I have no idea how many floors this place had. 4? 10? 30? Caves are as much as any geological formation can be.
That is probably one of my, I wouldn't say biggest fears, but definitely one of the top ones. The claustrophobia, like dying of like getting stuck or in a claustrophobic area. Dude, I get claustrophobic legitimately if I'm just like if I don't know, if someone's on top of me or something. Like if someone, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good way to describe it. Like if I'm wrapped in blankets too tight, you know, I get claustrophobic during that.
Caves breathe, have active circulatory, digestive, and excretory systems, can contract disease and suffer injuries and heal many of.
No, they don't. Do caves poop? Just proved all of that wrong.
Both, and are constantly growing, just like any other living body.
And I've already made clear my thoughts on living spaces. The strangest thing of all to me, though, was that there always did seem to be a way forward.
They do?
Hundreds of feet underground, through pitch-black rooms and shoulder-width hallways, there was always a way forward. It straddled this bizarre tightrope. Obviously, no human would have ever designed a space like this, and yet there were just enough accommodations that I felt like I should be traversing it. It hit me like a stalactite to the face. I know this kind of space. Caves are superstructures. And few places portray that superstructure
Stalagmites are
like
just
death
cave
and
dingleberries.
somehow welcoming hostility. Like the Krubera Cave,
Oh, this
stretching
guy
for
is
miles
insane.
below the western Caucasus mountain range. This is where a group of explorers thought they would find the true deepest place on Earth. There are two main features of Krubera. First are the chutes. These are the things that allowed it to be a contender for the deepest cave. They are what feel like bottomless pits, places where the stone just drops away for hundreds and hundreds of feet.
Pretty crazy
This
that
is
less than
the
10% of
howling
caves have
nothing
been
that pulled the
discovered.
team forward.
See, I feel like that's what it is. Same with oceans, same with forests. Like, there's such a small percentage of things that have been discovered, you know what I mean? Like in forest and in did someone just say mod him? Yeah, mod the guy who said that. But yeah, it's the unknown, you know what I mean? Like, the unknown is terrifying.
This is where it was exceptionally easy to lean the wrong direction on your descent rig and fall until you hit the living rocks below. Then there are the hard parts. They're called meanders, and they're the warped tunnels in between the chutes. For the Krubera team, who were hoping to find the bottommost point of the cave, meanders were what halted their progress. One such time,
Only time I'm going into a
5,800
cave
feet
is
underground,
Minecraft.
the team felt well and truly stuck. Until a breakthrough. The cavers found a way forward through a 300-foot-long tunnel they called the Way to the Dream. Ironically, this tunnel is about as nightmarish as anything I can imagine. The walls and roof were jagged with knife-sharp rock, and it was so narrow that you couldn't even fit through on your hands and knees. It was a belly crawl the entire way.
This is what I'm talking about. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? No. You can't even move your arms. You wonder why only 10, you know, honestly, why? Why do we need to? Why do we need to? There's no reason we need to explore caves. You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to find? More rocks?
I seriously can't stop thinking about those spaces.
Pig, we established that you can ask why to anything. Shut your damn mouth.
Underground. How elemental they felt. How untouched. How unnervingly welcoming they were. I felt it most when I was sidling along a passage too narrow to pass through straight on, my hands bracing against the wall and my feet skirting through the murky water on the ground. Why would this corridor be exactly this size? Why not so narrow I didn't have a chance of fitting through, or so wide I couldn't see the other side? Why did it feel made for me? And I could imagine just continuing down into these caverns for days,
Come into
always
me.
finding another passage,
Come into
always
me.
squeezing myself through another opening. I would tell myself that just down this route, everything
You
would
chat, you think they're low enough to find diamonds yet?
make sense. I would push myself further because the caves seemed to ask me to. I would wander in a
Oh wait, was that a
constant
Junji Ito
conversation
reference?
with these growing, living walls. The call of the void is rarely more apt than when talking about the depths. I felt it well within that cave, and in fiction too.
By the way, chat, originally I thought this was going to be about the ocean because it said fear of depths. So, sorry. I just wanted to mention that. At the beginning of the video, I did say, hey, I'm going to talk about the ocean and how scary it is. And then we start talking about spelunking.
The depths are consistently linked to that alluring feeling of self-destruction. In Playdead's Inside, the game initially appears to
That's a really good game, by the way. The game Inside's really
follow
good.
the language of many 2D games, that is, left to right. But there's a much more insidious journey here, one much more resonant to the game's themes, and one impossible to ignore once you know what's happening. A descent. Plotted out, it feels like the boy is in free fall, always sinking deeper into the earth, into the water, into the horrible depths of whatever's happening inside. One of the most chilling parts of the game for me is the first moment that really highlights this descent. This submarine, when you first get it, feels like a blessing. No longer do you have to worry about holding your breath. Now you can explore these flooded hallways with confidence and light and power. And then, just when you've started to get comfortable, you smash through some loose boards in the floor and find yourself.
That's what I'm talking about. That shit right there. That's the fear of the ocean right there. This is what I'm talking about.
Ugh. It's just so big.
It's big. Big. Oh, it's big.
And so empty and so...
Just how he said that. Oh, it's so big.
This is the first time in the game we haven't been able to see the floor. It never even occurred to me that we wouldn't be able to see the floor, but here we are, floating above oblivion, and it's not claustrophobia anymore, and it's not the fear of drowning, it's just those depths. It's why, by the end, everything feels so off. This laboratory might be almost normal, but how could it be when we've been tumbling downward for hours? How could it be normal thousands of feet below the surface? And when you burst out into what's seemingly outside again in the finale, it feels impossible. We know implicitly what shouldn't be on the other side of that wall. More labs, maybe, or a sheer rock wall, or just a blackness infinite and welcoming. But not the surface again. Never the surface.
Spoilers.
We're in too deep. In Jeff Van
Limbo is a
Vandermeer's
badass game
Annihilation,
too, yeah.
a team of scientists exploring a geographic
What is it? What's it called? Annihilation?
aberration discover, well, they find a spiral staircase leading downward. But almost immediately, the protagonist recontextualizes the staircase in her head. It's not a tunnel, it's a tower. She insists that it's a tower. She's frustrated that the others don't recognize it as what it is, which is clearly a tower. The book doesn't really explain why she insists on this nomenclature.
Dude, you know what is a good fucking representation of the depths and like fear of like the ocean and stuff like that is that Iron Lung game. Do we play Iron Lung, chat?
But the dominance of the staircase in her mind and in ours as readers hints at the reason. Though the spiral sinks into the earth rather than towering above it, its presence is always felt, implicitly visible from every part of the infected area. Every event that happens in the story, every clash with another character,
Soma's a good one too. Subnautica,
the biologist mentally returns to the tower, and I did as well.
Actually, the reason I stopped playing Subnautica right when I got to the point where I could explore like the open ocean, not just like the reefs and stuff like that.
Knew from the second it was discovered that nothing could be truly known about this world without descending into that tower. And in the end, she does, plunging into what is ultimately a genuine eldritch horror. But for me, the unexplored...
Dude, I kind of want to read that book now. What's it called? Annihilation? That sounds interesting. I'm going to pull it up.
Power was the more powerful idea, always beckoning her back, always present in our mind's eye. The idea that you don't even have to be in the depths to feel their influence. That simply knowing they're there is enough.
Oh, there's a movie?
After the way to the dream, the cavers found themselves stuck again, 5,888 feet underground. The only potential way forward was through an underwater passage, but because the way to the dream was so narrow, they couldn't bring any scuba equipment with them. They would have to dive into the sump, blind and
dude. Eldritch horror stuff is I'm really interested in that. Piggy, can't forget about Bioshock. I think that's why I like Bioshock so much. Thank you so much, Bacon Face Jugs. It's weird. It's like I have a hate-love relationship for that type of stuff. Thank you so much for the $10. The movie is dope. I might watch it then. That sounds interesting.
Hope beyond hope that there was a way forward, and they did.
Nice car. Perfect.
There's a phenomenon called a moulin, detailed by Robert McFarlane in his magnificent book Underland. A moulin is essentially an ice funnel. Glaciers are not solid. They're perforated like
Am I getting
Earth,
good
with
book
tunnels
recommendations
and chambers,
right now?
and in a moulin's case, sheer hypnotizing drops. The funnels are created by water racing along the top of a glacier, eventually finding a weak point in the ice and plunging down into it. The walls of a moulin are smooth and blue, like polished glass. They are often as deep as the glacier itself. They roar with the amount of water pouring through them.
Global
McFarlane
warming,
notes
am I
that
right?
across cultures and countries, stories are common of explorers crashing through the ice into a chasm, presumably dying, and yet re-emerging from the glacier days or weeks later. Their own resurrection from under the frozen world. He and other authors have also noted the uncanny pull that the moulins specifically have. An outdoor blogger named Dave Gallagher referred to a moulin as his own Moby Dick, living in his mind for years after he first experienced it. I know I have also read, though I cannot find where, stories of the near hypnosis that the smooth glass
Cosmic
can impart.
horror, yeah. Not gonna lie, I enjoy reading horror, but I honestly hate horror movies. Is that weird? I like the what's it? Like the interesting horror, like the more unsettling stuff, not the, classic jump scare shit.
Stories of people feeling driven to throw themselves in. For now, those stories exist as my own personal mythos. In the Chinese,
I don't really like
runes
analog
Dear
horror.
Esther, the protagonist
kinda got
is reborn through
boring
caves,
for me.
water, and
Psychological, yeah, I like
delirious
psychological
from
horror
fever
too.
and injury, he stumbles once, twice, 3 times deeper into a cave on the apparition of a Hebridean island his mind has created.
And yeah, I
first fall
hate
takes
gore.
him from the
Gore is probably the most cheap, annoying thing, and I hate it. I hate gore in horror. I think that's another reason why I hate horror movies is gore. Like I don't want to get nauseous watching a movie,
surface into the caverns.
Have you ever played
The
a
second
Mori? No.
From the caverns
I've considered
into a
it.
slick waterfall basin. The third from a luminescent stone chimney to a highway underwater, lost in time. This is the underworld made manifest as it exists in stories, religions, myths. The highway where the memory of his loved one is trapped. The hospital bed where she took her last breath. It is everything about the depths at once.
I
Overwhelming.
love gore in anime. You're
The
weird.
darkest recesses of his mind, trapped in the literal deepest part of the
I get it if you like gore by just like enjoying like if it's like practical effects or being impressed by how realistic it looks. But if you just enjoy gore just because you like getting grossed out, you're weird.
world. Under so many miles of pressure, he can barely see the surface. His reemergence from each underworld is, too, simultaneous. Surfacing from the water, as clear-headed as he's been, walking out of the
I already
cave onto the
already
shore.
watched someone play the Corey.
There is
It's
no
kind of mid.
separation of the mental and physical depths in Dear Esther. They are one and the same.
Exactly. Gore
There
should be
is
justified.
sometimes
They need to
danger
have a reason
to
for it.
unearthing the depths. Like the undersea creatures that have lived their lives with 26,000 feet of water as a ceiling.
Ew! Ew! What is ew? What is that? What is that? Ew. Ew. What if you appreciate it? I literally just said if you like it because you appreciate what goes into it, that's different. Chat, there's these people on the internet that I hate more than anything, where they flex their gore threshold to people. For example, if I'm like, oh yeah, I don't really want to watch that. It's just a little bit gory. It's like, you call that gore? Oh, come on. You don't be a pussy. Don't be a pussy. I watch something way more gory than that. I watch stuff I watch people getting murdered on the regular, and it doesn't even faze me, man. Don't be a pussy. Fuck, dude, I hate people like that, man. My threshold of gore is way higher than yours. You're just a baby. It's so dumb, man. Just shut up. Let people enjoy what they enjoy. I liked Human Centipede for the message. Okay, homie.
Creatures that quite literally...
Like, for example, there's been some that I don't mind. I think I can handle animated gore. Like, for example, like Devilman Crybaby, I can handle that. Obviously, Invincible, that wasn't bad. You know, like some, like I feel like animated gore, I don't really care about. But like the practical stuff, I just don't like. The Boys, I never watched The Boys.
melt when taken to the surface. They were never meant to see the light of day.
Melt?
Or spent uranium, maybe the single most dangerous refuse of our species. A material that will stay dangerous after the death of our children's children's children. A power source, used once,
He bit me.
then radiating farther into the future than we can possibly imagine. What is it like to create something that could kill a civilization 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years from now? How do you bury something so deep that it never comes up? Not after history and language and maybe even species has been wiped away and started anew. It's the absurd challenge that faces every nuclear waste disposal plant. And, of course, it's a challenge that's more or less impossible to test.
Dude, it is insane that like humans, what was it? We've been on the Earth for like 0.001% of the existence of the planet, yet we've caused like I think like 30 or 40% of the Earth's like damaging the Earth, basically. Something like that. There's something I saw about that. It's pretty crazy.
Land, McFarland details the waste isolation pilot project in New Mexico, a tomb for our nuclear waste set to be sealed about 15 years from now. Half a mile underground, the rooms containing the waste will be intentionally collapsed, then sealed with 13 layers of concrete and soil. And then the salt will start to drip. Because the WIPP is buried in a salt bed millions of years old, slowly that salt will crawl into every crevice, fill in every space left behind. The salt will confine the radiation better than we ever could. We're still
Humans,
not sure
am I
if it's
right?
good
Back
enough,
to
though.
monkey.
Acres of salt and concrete and radiation buried in a desert that frequently reaches over 105 degrees seems like it would dissuade anyone from coming near. But then again, so does living under miles of pitch black water. If it exists, we will attempt to uncover it.
True.
And so, there's another layer of protection. The waste site in New Mexico will be surrounded by dozens of 25-foot-high granite pillars surrounding a wall of earth, which surrounds more pillars, which surrounds a granite room engraved with a warning written in English, Spanish, Russian, French, Chinese, Arabic, and Navajo. The warning will read, "We are going to tell you what lies underground, why you should not disturb this place, and what may happen."
Dude, that is cryptic as fuck. Imagine like, oh my God, imagine thousands of years in the future when we forget about this and someone stumbles upon this shit. What the fuck? Dude, that's scary as fuck.
And if you do.
El sitio era conocido como el WIP, o el sitio de la planta piloto de aislamiento de residuos cuando cerró en el año 2038 AD.
Отходы были созданы при производстве ядерного оружия, также известного как атомная бомба.
我们制造的问题不是孩子的责任。
هذه الرسالة تحذير من الخطر.
Oh, you got it today?
Will it work? I want to believe yes. But imagine us.
Dude, the thing is, if humans forget that this exists, we'll find it, and our curiosity will get the best of us, and we'll do something stupid. Yes, we will do a skating stream, chat. I have to get better first. I have to get to the point that I look cool when I do it. Okay? I want to look epic. I'll probably fall a bunch.
A new species, finding an ancient monument with strange lettering, ominous pictograms, and thousands of feet of obelisks surrounding it. Imagine us breaking into a tomb, disregarding the cries and promises of long-dead civilizations.
Exactly.
Finally, after the underwater tunnel and the way to the dream and thousands upon thousands of feet of descent, the team reached a chamber from which they could go no lower. 6,824 feet underground, they found the lowest part of that cavern and they gave it an appropriate name. Game over.
Game over.
The Krubera isn't the deepest cave in the world, by the way. Not anymore. Just 2 years ago, a team found a neighbor that was actually some 400 feet deeper, the Virovkina Cave in Georgia. It seems naive to think that this is actually the deepest cave. There are always further passages. There's always a way to keep going. But sometimes there's no way to come back.
Yeah.
Cardboard Computer's Kentucky Route Zero is a game that takes place largely underground.
Where does he
sometimes
find these
specifically,
games,
sometimes
man?
in a more nebulous sense. What's ever present, no matter the locale, though, is a feeling of pressure. Because Earth is rarely the only thing the characters of this game are under. To a person, each is grappling with the perils of the world above. Some are old horrors like alcoholism and grief. Some are a sadistic modern twist, as the game refers to it, a new kind of debt. You get the sense that the characters felt, on some level, like they'd be able to escape the surface's horrors, The Zero, enigmatically referred to from the very first scene, is supposedly an underground highway through the caves to help the characters get to where they're going. But as the story stretches on, the promise of escape and the promise of the Zero fades. There's still a destination in mind, but the steps to get there seem increasingly obtuse. They have to double back, stumble blindly, struggle to stay afloat, and all the while, the horrors compound. All the while, the debt piles up. Far from an escape, the caves of Kentucky Route Zero seem to magnify the pressures that each character is running from. What drove them from the surface world now traps them here. That constant weight threatens to prevent them from ever returning. Kentucky Route
game
Zero
looks
may
dope.
resemble
Yeah,
an
it does.
actual cave more than any other game.
Yeah, there's a
in
lot of good
existence.
games out there that
It
are
meanders,
so
it's
like
dark.
undiscovered.
It feels impossible to fully wrap one's head around. It is absolutely bursting with strange beauty. And in the end, we're faced once again with death and rebirth, like an explorer disappearing under a glacier, or a man who disappears into his own underground world. Kentucky Route Zero takes place in Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. It's a national park established on the death of a man trapped in a cave. Floyd Collins' cave is probably connected to Mammoth somehow, if you followed those sandy tunnels deep enough. That discovery has been walled off for now, though. Sand Cave is gated, bolted, and welded closed. You'd think this wouldn't be necessary, that no one would want to enter the hellish chute where a man died a prolonged death in the dark and the still.
Is he still down there? I'm assuming they didn't get his body.
But we gate it regardless. Because there is an inexplicable, irrational, irresistible pull to these worlds. There is a void, and it indeed does call. Come, see what lies a
Come!
little deeper.
I can say that now, because I'm not on Twitch.
This world is not my home.
Copyright. Good video. Very good video, Jacob Geller. I'm gonna subscribe. Come. Come. Nope, I'm gonna stay home. Same.
Now it's time to walk away. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Did you laugh or cry or maybe subscribed? I'll thank you either way. You know I will miss you. I hope you return. Tell your friend or your mother to get me more views, please.